Sierra ODC building looks like any other IT office building from outside. No posh or massive structure, but if you enter the office complex of this IT solutions company, you will realize what the so-called green building means and is much talked about. Okay, my options are, let's look at option A, okay, without any posh, that's how it starts, right? Without any posh. So instead of no, I'm using without any, right? So without any posh or massive structure, which is the subject here? Sierra ODC, है ना? The Sierra ODC building is the subject. Okay, no problem. So then if you haven't taken the test, then you have to tell me what is the strategy that you used. Without any posh or massive structure, I have this but, right? I have to include this previous sentence. So I can still include it, right? I can say without any posh or massive structure, what looks like any other IT office? Sierra ODC building looks like any other IT office building from outside. But if you enter the office complex of this IT solutions company, you will realize what the so-called green building means and is much talked about. Super. So this is possible. Option A is possible. No problem, right? I am just replacing no with without any, still retaining the meaning. Great. I have added my, after this massive structure because of the comma and then a completely different thought process starts, right? But with antonym hint word, I will use my subject. Sierra ODC building looks like, but if you blah blah blah. Okay, option A, great. What about option B? What is so called? It's right here. They've taken the last line, right? I just cannot make sense. What is so called? This question, what is so called green building means and is much talked about, just illogical, the context. Like I can't even proceed further starting with this option B. I will eliminate it quickly, right? Because again, why? So-called is more like a hyphenated adjective describing the green building, right? So it just doesn't make sense. Option C, if you enter, where is that? The next context after the antonym hint word but, right? Let's see. If you enter the office complex of IT solutions, IT solutions company, and then so what we can do is, if you enter the office complex of IT solutions company, I need to bring in the subject, right? If I start with this, because but is here, the given sentence makes sense. But if I start with if you enter the office complex of the IT solutions company, which is that company, the same company which is Sierra ODC building, right? So I have to bring that in. So if you enter the office complex of IT solutions company, which is Sierra ODC building, and how does that look? I have to add a connector here, a relative pronoun to make sense, which looks like any other IT office building. So let's go over that again. Yeah, if you enter the office complex of IT solutions company, which is the Sierra ODC building, which looks like any other IT office building from outside, how does it look? Without any, I can use the same, instead of no, how does it look? Without any posh or massive structure, right? Then I add the next, you will realize. So now it makes sense. Are you following, guys? I'm going to write the whole thing here, okay? If you enter the office complex of the IT solutions company, and that company is none other than Sierra ODC building. I don't have to write building here because we're referring to that company, right? If you enter the office complex of the IT solutions company Sierra ODC, which looks like any other IT office building from outside, and how does it look? Use the same thing, instead of no, without any posh or massive structure, then just add the rest. You will realize, and finish it. That's it. You will realize what the so-called blah 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 blah. From the given options, use that to start the sentence. How are you going to connect? You can use connectors. That's what the question is all about, right? Phrase connectors. So which means I just have to connect these two sentences, starting the sentence with the options given. And of course, I can use other things to make logical sense. So I'll have to explore the maximum number of options, possible options that I can come up with to connect these two sentences. Yeah. If I start the sentence with that, how will it's almost like a question, right? See, that's what I said. The so-called green building, the so-called is an hyphenated adjective describing the green building. I cannot start, even if I change what to which, it just doesn't make logical sense. It's acting more like a question for me rather than a sentence. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question type, which is spot the error, but it's not our usual one sentence given, divided into parts, find the part that has the error. Directions, we are all familiar. Select phrase connector from the given three options, which can be used to form a single sentence from the two sentences given below, implying the same meaning as expressed in the statement sentences. So let's quickly mark the two sentences very clearly, right? So research shows some people are able to respond more quickly to questions. So this is obviously sentence 1. They are perceived as more charismatic is sentence 2. And I have 3 options. Research shows that people who, then I have responding to questions, and then I have however research, right? So using any of these options, we'll have to connect the two sentences and make sure the meaning is retained. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to a minute. Let's see if you're able to crack this. So, and it very clearly says, pick out the option which when used to start a sentence combines both the above sentence into one. Okay, let's go from the back. Okay, however research, option C says however research. So however meaning there has to be a preceding sentence, right? And I can quickly eliminate option C because it just won't make sense for me to connect those two sentences, right? Because there is no contradictory meaning here at all. Research shows that people are able to respond more quickly to questions. They are perceived as more charismatic. So which means it's talking about the same people, group of people, and there's nothing contradicting. So which means I don't have to even worry about option C because of this hint word, however, because there's no contradictory meaning. B, responding to questions quickly. Research shows that some people, again, it's not making any sense, right? Illogical. Option B as well. If I start the sentence with responding to questions, how will I take it forward? It just doesn't make sense. Option A. Research shows that people who respond more quickly to questions are perceived as more charismatic as well, right? So I'm able to connect both the sentences retaining meaning, and that option is provided only by option A, and therefore the answer is option A. So couple of you are coming back and giving me other options, right? So if I take B, we just looked at B quickly, right? I'm unable to move forward if I start the sentence with responding to questions. Responding to questions quickly. Would you like to type out the complete sentence where you're saying, hey, let's start with option B. Responding to questions more quickly. What? How will you take it forward and complete the sentence? So I'd like to see your sentences, if you can manage to type it out. So the only problem with option B is, even if I start with that, I just can't make complete meaning of both the sentences, right? Because I have to bring in the context of research. I also have to bring in the context of that they are perceived as charismatic. So responding to questions quickly, display people as, or responding to questions quickly, people are perceived as more charismatic, as per research also, is not giving me the right message, right? Because there is, both the things are on the same platform. There is nothing more or less in terms of meaning. So what I'm trying to say is, I just can't make logical sense when I start the sentence with B. And that leaves us with A, very clear, no problem. Responding to questions more quickly, make people more charismatic is a completely different meaning. Just because I respond to questions more quickly, it doesn't make people charismatic. They are perceived as charismatic, right? So I need that context, and I also need research. Both of those elements are missing in your context. So one, it's not complete. Responding to questions more quickly, make people more, again, same thing. Okay, you said as per research, you took it from my word, but still it's not giving or implying the same meaning, right? Responding to questions more quickly does not make people more charismatic. They are perceived as charismatic. So that's a completely different meaning altogether. Yeah. So for me, meaning is not complete. The implied meaning in the first two original sentences are not brought out clearly in option B, whereas in option A, without a doubt, it completes meaning. Charismatic. What is the meaning of charismatic? If you call somebody as charismatic, people are automatically drawn to them. Why? Because of their personality. Maybe they have the gift of the gab. Okay, you may not understand what gift of the gab is. Gift of the gab means somebody who knows how to talk, how to present themselves. When I say somebody is charismatic, there's some sort of an aura around them, right? You are drawn to their personality. It can be the way they dress, it can be the way they carry themselves, it can be the way they speak, it can be the way they handle certain situations, right? Very charismatic, something very energetic about them, something very powerful about them, right? That's a charismatic person. You are attracted to them immediately because of the way they are, because their personality is in such a way, right? So depending on the nature, depending on how you look at people, yeah. So charismatic people, they don't have to necessarily be beautiful. People are drawn to them because of their personality. Baba Ramdev's Patanjali group gave FMCG multinationals a breathless run for their money and clocking a turnover of rupees 10,561 crores in 2016 to 17, and now his group wants to set a more scorching growth pace and double its turnover by the next year. Okay, it's pretty long sentences, right? I have sentence 1 here and then I have sentence 2 right here. So my options are setting a more scorching, a breathless run for, and after giving FMCG. So again, we're going to pick out the option which when used to start a sentence combines both the above sentences into one. Okay, so your time starts now. Let's see if you're able to get this also correct. It's the same direction as the first question, no change. Only, okay, so I have different options. I have B, C, D. So scorching. Usually you will associate scorching with the word heat, scorching heat, right? The sun was scorching, which means it was very intense, maximum. So in the context, wants to set a more scorching growth pace, matlab very intense growth pace, something very fast paced, something very powerful, strong growth pace. That's what it means. Okay. So if you're familiar with collocations, you can quickly associate the word with what word would be associated with, and then look at the context and see, apply some context clues and figure out the meaning. Yeah. So now let's look at our options. Okay, we'll go from option A, setting a more scorching growth pace. Okay. So look at the whole context, right? Setting a more scorching. When I say setting a more scorching growth pace, which means that has already taken place, right? When I start the sentence with a gerund form, ing form, setting a more scorching growth pace, which means that has already happened. But has it already happened? As per the context meaning, go back to the context, it says his group wants to set a more scorching growth pace, which means it is still not happened. That is something that they are planning in the future, right? They want to send me, which means I have to rule out option A. I can't have option A. Setting a more scorching growth pace and doubling its turnover by the next year. Baba Ramdev's, if I have to go in that mode, I can't go in that mode because that's not what the context is implying. The meaning is not that. They want to set a more scorching, which means it's not yet done. So I can't use option A, out. Option B, the people who said option B, a breathless run for their money and clocking a turnover. So how will you give me the sentence? Those who said B, only B, right? Give me the sentence because I really can't move forward. A breathless run for their money. How will you connect both the sentences from there? I have no clue. Like I can't even put 2 and 2. A breathless run for their money and what? I'm not able to make logical sense. Where will I connect? What will I connect? I'll simply have to rule out B because I'm not even able to move forward. It's taken a part somewhere in between where it's just impossible for me to connect those two sentences. Who is giving a breathless run, right? The only option that makes logical sense is option C. Look at it. It says, after giving FMCG a breathless run for their money and clocking a turnover of rupees 10,000 blah blah blah. It's the same group, right? So I can substitute this and this whole thing which says, and now this group to Baba Ramdev's Patanjali group, right? So I can say, after giving FMCG multinationalists a breathless run for their money and clocking a turnover of blah blah blah, Baba Ramdev's Patanjali group wants to set a more scorching growth pace and double its turnover by the next year. That makes sense, right? So the only option that retains meaning and completes a sentence grammatically correct, meaningfully, is option C. Only C. So those who said only C, correct. Yeah, following? So option A, though it seems like I can connect the sentence, but the meaning is absolutely incorrect. I can't use option A. Option B, though, there is no chance of me moving forward, right? Because it's taken some weird phrase somewhere in between where I can't connect the preceding part or the following part. The only option that will connect is, can somebody explain to me what does that phrase breathless run mean? Anybody? Just apply a little bit of logic. What can it mean in that context? It's not very difficult. Just put two and two together. A tough fight. Yes. Heavy competition. Yes. Very good. Right? So in the context, just look at that phrase alone. Breathless means what? Out of breath. Somebody who's not able to keep up with you, or somebody who's giving you a tough time where, they're just not making it easy for you. Right? Where you have to really try hard to catch up with them. So if somebody is giving you a breathless run, which means they either making it very difficult for you, right? Or the competition is just too much at stake, right? So when you start when you start the sentence with a breathless run for, it just doesn't make sense because I need a subject who's actually doing that to you, right? So that way, meaningfully, I cannot start the sentence with a breathless run for. It just doesn't make logical sense. Intense fight, genuine fight, yeah. I mean, in this context, it's not really a fight. It's more of a, giving them a tough time. Baba Ramdev's Patanjali group gave FMCG multinationals a breathless run for their money, meaning making it challenging for them, making it difficult for them, making it tough for them. Yeah. And now they want to set a more scorching growth pace and double its turnover by the next year. So it's a tough competition. Exactly. That's the exact meaning. Yeah. So phrase connectors, like I keep saying, even though you somehow feel that you can connect and make sense, always keep going back and seeing, hey, is it conveying the same meaning as both those sentences, the original sentences are conveying? That's something that you need to keep looking for, right? And grammatically also, you need to ensure that it's making sense, which means you need to be familiar with certain phrases. Like for example, in this context, a breathless run. Somebody has to do that for you, which means I need the subject to start, and I can't start the sentence with a breathless run for. Just won't make sense. Okay, so phrase connectors, if you have missed, I would advise you to go back and look up some earlier refresher sessions where we've spent considerable time on phrase connectors, where I've shared the strategies. It's the same thing, right? The first thing is to make sure how I can eliminate wrong answer options and keep looking at the directions, because it'll specifically say use the given options to, when you start the sentence, to combine these two sentences. So either we miss out on expressing the right meaning of the two original sentences, or we miss out on certain idiomatic phrases like this, which has to make sense and which has to appear in a construction in a specific way, otherwise it will be grammatically incorrect. Okay, so I would advise you to go back and look up those sessions.